Good morning, folks. This is the Energy and Carbon Management Commission. It is Wednesday, October 1st. It is 9 a.m., and we will recognize our existence with a roll call.
Thank you, Commissioner Ackerman,
Here.
Commissioner Cross,
Present.
Commissioner Mesner,
Here.
Commissioner Oath,
Here.
Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 5 commissioners present.
Good morning, fellow commissioners, and thank you, Hearings Manager Thomas. We start with commissioner comments. Does anyone have comments to report to the rest of us and to our stakeholders? Seeing none, we roll into consent agenda. Does anyone have questions on consent? Do we have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. We now have a presentation on the Martinez-Irwin Fund proposal presentation. Ms. Papillon, ECMC Deputy Director for Strategic Services, will make a presentation. You're recognized. Please go ahead.
Thank you. And good morning. I was just sharing my screen. Can everyone see my slides?
Yes.
Excellent. Good morning. Thank you all so much for the opportunity and the attention to our proposal. Today we have a Martinez-Irwin Training Funds request for you to consider. I'm going to jump in if that's okay, and if you all could save your questions to the end. So the agenda for this short presentation is to provide some background, to overview our business case for this request, and then to provide some details about the how we propose to organize the training funds, and then at the end we'll have some time for questions. So as I'm sure you know, we've experienced tremendous growth over the last, we're looking here at the last 7 years, so 77% growth with the addition of 88.2 FTE added since 2018. Over 60 of those have been hired since 2023, so really a push here in the last couple of years. As you all know well, there's been 19 rulemakings since the adoption of SB 19181. And because of this tremendous growth, under the direction of the director, Julie Murphy, we have broadened our leadership team and expanded our organizational development to include the addition of a third deputy, which is my role, Deputy of Strategic Services. And under this section, the Strategic Services section, you can see here on the screen all the different content that is overseen by this particular section. And you'll see that organizational workforce development is highlighted there because this fund will fall into that area of our work at ECMC. So the goal of this project really is to be able to meet our mission, right, to regulate the development and production of the natural resources of oil and gas in the state of Colorado in a manner that protects public health, safety, and welfare, including protection of the environment and wildlife resources by making sure that every staff member, every ECMC staff member receives all the training and workforce development skills they need to adequately and safely perform their job functions. And you can see some of the ways that we anticipate us doing that. So designing new energy regulatory systems, evaluating energy regulatory requirements, research and development, and then collaboration with stakeholders in the public and private sectors to strengthen programs and build partnerships. Here you can see some of the data that we feel supports our business case. You can see this tremendous growth with this addition of 88 new employees, and that does not include all of the backfills. So we had 88.2 full-time employees added to our staff, but when we recruited for those, many of those positions were hired internally, which added a cascade of recruitments and even more folks who are in new roles at ECMC. Here you can see the staff tenure, and if you notice, looking at, we have the highest bars there are the 1 to 3 years, and then the 5 to 10 years. You can see that a huge portion that we just saw, right, of our staff are 3 years and below. And I just want to note that of our staff who are in that 5 to 15 years, a lot of those are the ones who moved to new positions at ECMC. So tremendous growth, tremendous movement of staff in and around ECMC over the last few years. And here it really highlights, here we see how many were external or new to ECMC, and how many were internal promotions. So if you add all those up, that's 251 recruitments that we've had over those last 7 years. So tremendous amount of hiring, and we're delighted to say we've met our hiring goals, and just have a couple more positions left to be hired. So we do anticipate a period of stability where we really can hone in on training and workforce development. Just to give you an idea of what this might look like, here we have the Cumulative Impacts and Energy Transition Unit, which if you just take a look at the org chart, they're all PS, or many of them are PSRS 3s or 2s, 4s, I think it goes all the way up to 6. But if you look at their job titles, you can see a variety of job titles, right? Which each include different training needs and different requirements in order to fulfill those job roles. From the Science and Technical Writer, CI Data Analyst, Energy Transition Senior Scientist, Geothermal. So it's just an example of the needs that might even happen within one unit. On this slide, we see the tremendous growth of the planning and permitting unit. So here we show from 2018 to 2025, just the tremendous growth, the addition of all these new positions, and feel that this also supports the need for training to make sure that we are able to identify the gaps in knowledge in all of our workforce, and be able to target and hone in on training to make sure that everyone in the unit is fully qualified and trained to do their job duties. The Mark Martinez and Joey Irwin Memorial Fund was established because those two lost their lives tragically due to an avoidable chain of events. This fund was established to help improve safety and prevent anything like that from ever happening again. We're asking for $500,000 from the fund to be used over the next 3 years to enhance safety and workforce development for all ECMC staff, which we feel aligns well with the goals of the fund. We propose the following breakdown for our project. And here you can see we propose $1,200 per staff member, and then we have training for units and groups, which would be per a request process approved by senior leadership. And then we have $78,000 to be hired to hire a term limited training administrator to help manage these funds. Now, we do realize that not all training needs are the same, and we will be standing up processes, business processes that consider equity in training for maybe new staff that might need more training than some senior staff, or whatever the case may be. So that $1,200 we will be working with in our operating procedures and with our leadership to make sure that we are equitably administering these funds to our staff. Here you can see some types of activities that we are proposing, and we did do a survey with all ECMC units and staff to determine what training needs there were, and there were so many. Just a very big spreadsheet full of all the different kinds of training that the units need and are required and also would like to have. But some of the top ones would be top core or other energy training, field process safety, office safety, energy law, e-filing, drone reclamation, quality assurance. So across the spectrum of training needs. We also consider certifications and licensure, such as engineering certifications or licensure. Content-specific conferences, such as AI as a tool, emerging energy regulation, And then we also considered observing new technologies in the field. So this would be teams, units, staff traveling to key sites that are standing up new energy technologies such as geothermal, carbon sequestration, et cetera, to really observe and learn all we can from fellowing states and neighbors. Here is the proposed timeline for this funding. So we anticipate hopefully securing the funding this month. If so, we'll be with Oxy and our finance team to determine the training payment business processes. We'll develop a survey to determine gaps in our training workforce. So we've already identified training wants and needs. Now we need to determine the gaps in our training, in our skills, and really make sure that we are focusing and honing in on those gaps, identifying the risks, et cetera. In November, we plan to stand up those new business processes, develop a communications plan for staff, and then socialize that with leadership. In December, we plan to launch recruitment for that training administrator, formalize our standard operating processes, and then create and present lunch and learn and deploy our communications plan with the idea that this program would start in January 2026. We feel that robust staff workforce development and training is essential for ECMC to remain a national leader in energy regulation. The Martinez-Irwin Fund will allow ECMC to assess the current state of knowledge in the organization, identify gaps, determine risks, and develop and deploy a robust workforce development plan for all employees. I would like to thank Mike Leonard for coming up with the idea of using Martinez-Irwin's funds to support training, Hannah Hickam for her work as our employment coordinator on the employment data and slides, and Julie Murphy for her vision and support of workforce development as a key strategic initiative for ECMC. Thank you. I'll take your questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Just one question from me offhand. When we set up the Martinez-Irwin Fund, as you mentioned, that was penalties assessed from the incident, and Occidental Petroleum Corporation was comfortable with this set aside of funds, and they held the funds, and then they transfer the funds to us once we and Oxy agree that there is a proper utilization of the funds. So the question is, and I pretty much know the answer, but just wanted to get it on the record. Have we talked with Oxy about this, and are they comfortable with the usage of the funds in this manner?
I know that Julie and I have spoken about this, and Julie has planned for us to meet with Oxy to go over this plan and project.
Chair, if I may.
Yeah,
And
please, Director
sorry, I'm
Murphy.
off screen. We have had some background conversations with Oxy, and I did confirm with them earlier this week that they're okay with it. So I think we're good there. And yes, I would like to revisit with them what it looks like, consistent with what Paige said.
Okay, so I think if we move forward with this, the motion would include approval with the condition precedent that Oxy, formalizes its approval for the usage of the funds in this manner, or something like that. So, thank you very much for answering that question and for the presentation. Commissioners, do others have questions on the presentation and the proposed usage of the Martinez-Irwin funds? Commissioner Messner.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And I too agree that this is an important topic. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit, understanding that the Martinez-Irwin funds are, one-time utilization of funds for this. Is there plans to institutionalize this in the budget at some point in the future, understanding that there will be ongoing training needs in perpetuity, and understanding this is a kind of one-time 3-year ask?
Thank you very much for the question. It's a great question, and absolutely, right? We do feel like that this extraordinary hiring and recruitment is a one-time thing for ECMC, and we do anticipate settling down into our steady state, making sure that we're all trained and able and ready workforce, and then absolutely putting and maintaining training funds in our budget.
Okay, so the structure that you're creating with this this funding mechanism that we're determining today, does that set the kind of the structure for institutionalizing that in the future so it would be applied similarly at year 4 on?
We would assess using similar surveys and instruments we would assess with the data. I don't think that the training needs would be as high over after these 3 years, right? After our workforce, we have very low turnover. So we do feel like that this expenditure would really set us up for the future. But we would use our data and survey instruments to assess our needs ongoing every year.
Okay, thank you.
Others with questions? All right, seeing no further questions, I would move approval of the usage of the Martinez-Irwin funds in a manner consistent with the presentation, with the condition precedent that we receive approval from Oxy prior to effectuating this use of the funds. AG Davenport, is that good enough?
Yes, Chair, that works.
Thanks. Do we have a second?
Second, and if I could, Chair, I'd say as part of that second, I think this is an important goal. A lot of what we've been talking about recently has been improving kind of the service aspect of our agency as well. And I think making sure that our staff has the appropriate training will help in that as well. And so I do think that this is an important thing to be considering.
Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We appreciate you being with us this morning. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a few minutes, maybe 5, return at 9:22, and we will take up the next docket matter. All right, welcome back, commissioners. This is the Energy and Carbon Management Commission, October 1st, 2025, 9:22. We're going to take up docket 241100269, an oil and gas development plan. Applicant is Crestone Peak Resources Operating LLC. Ms. Ryan, I see you. Welcome. Do you want to elevate your witnesses and we'll get them sworn in to get started?
Yes, thank you. I believe I see everyone. If you could all please visualize, we will get you all sworn in.
Go ahead, Mr. Boudreau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick clarifying question for Ms. Ryan. I have Kevin, I'm going to mispronounce his last name, but is he a witness or is he just presenting the PowerPoint?
He's presenting the PowerPoint. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll ask all the witnesses to be visualized. Please raise your hand when I call your name, state your first and last name, and swear to tell the truth. We'll start with Dan Harrington.
I, Daniel Harrington, swear to tell the truth.
John Picara.
John Picara, I swear to tell the truth.
Jeff Anable.
Jeff Annable, swear to tell the truth.
Lila Hooning.
Lila Hooning, I swear to tell the truth.
And Jeremy Saunier.
Jeremy Saunier, I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you.
All right, that takes care of the witnesses for the presentation. The agenda says public comment, but we do not have anyone signed up for public comment on this OGDP, so we'll skip that. Next would be Greg Dean, Adams County Local Government Designee and the Oil and Gas Administrator, Community and Economic Development. Mr. Dean, good to see you again. Welcome back.
Thank you. I have a presentation. I'm going to pull up my slides. Hopefully everybody can see them. Can everyone see them in presentation mode?
We can see them, but they're not in presentation mode.
Are they in presentation mode now?
They are. Thank
Great.
you.
So I'm Greg Dean, the Oil and Gas Administrator for Adams County. Part of my role is reviewing permits. And so This application for the Bennett D pad has a pending oil and gas facility permit, or OGF, application with Adams County. I went over our OGF process at our last presentation, so I won't go over this, but this application followed our new OGF process, including all the pre-application, development application submission processes, including an ALA as well as a pre-application neighborhood meeting. And this decision, because it requires 2 waivers, will have to go in front of our Board of County Commissioners. That hearing is scheduled for October 28th. So this application is all ready to go on the county's perspective. Just before I dive into this setback discussion that we have here, just to go over some existing use on the property, and I'm sure the applicant will go over this in more detail. There's an existing oil terminal on the subject parcel. It's currently zoned agriculture 3, and its future land use designation is mixed use industrial. This area is also near Colorado Air and Spaceport. It's in our airport restriction 1 and 2 zones, which strictly limits and prohibits development out here that would be for residential purposes. It also restricts the development of any occupiable structures for even commercial, industrial, or institutional purposes. So this area is limited on what future development can occur just because of current and future land use designations. So staff has deemed that this location is compatible with oil and gas development because they're so limited on what other development can occur out here. And obviously, because new residential development cannot occur, there aren't any potential impacts from that perspective. Adams County has environmentally sensitive area setbacks in our code. We require all new OGFs to be at least 2,000 feet from anything deemed environmentally sensitive. That would include wetlands, rivers, lakes, streams, surface waters. This application is 50 feet from a designated wetland, which again triggers our environmentally sensitive area setback, which again requires our Board of County Commissioners to hear the case because this waiver is not administratively waivable. There are 2 wetlands, 50 and 150 feet. They will remain undisturbed during construction operations, and we will require the applicant to grade the facilities such that it drains to the east away from the wetlands so that even if there is any runoff, it won't go into that wetland. And we are requiring berms, culverts, and ditches around the perimeter, again, to divert water away from those 2 wetlands. And then any on-site detention facilities has to be away from the wetlands as well. Again, our Board of County Commissioners has to approve this waiver. This also requires a waiver from our residential setback requirements. So again, we have a 2,000-foot setback from all new OGFs to residences, schools, and childcare facilities. We differ in that we measure our setbacks from the edge of maximum disturbance, not from the working pad surface, to the parcel line containing a home. It's the county's position and maintains the county's position that if we're using setback distance as a protective measure, that a resident should be as equally protected in their home as they are in their backyard or in their garage or shed. So therefore, we measure to the parcel line and not to the home, which of course increases the setback distance. So by the way, we define setbacks. There are 6 residences or tenants within the 2,000-foot setback, 4 property owners, and then on 2 of those properties, there are tenants. So we require consent from all 6 of those people in order to grant the waiver administratively. This slide's a little different than the ones I submitted because last night we were notified that they were able to get a second informed consent from one of the residents, so that there's now 2 of 6 instead of 1 of 6. That includes the tenant that's actually closest to the facility. And that's property owner number 1 or tenant number 1 on my map here. They signed consent yesterday. I will note that the surface owner of that property is opposed. They submitted public comment to the county in opposition to the oil and gas facility permit with concerns about water well quality and things like that. They don't live on the property, but they're concerned about water quality from their water well. So again, because they don't have 100% informed consent, they are required to go in front of our Board of County Commissioners for approval of this application. Our board has to use substantially equivalent determination. That's in our regulations as well, in determining whether the BMPs are equal to or more effective at avoiding, minimizing, and mitigating adverse impacts than the setback distance would be. And in determining that, they'd have to look at BMPs, the location, nature, and the size of the facility, duration and intensity of the operations, and compatibility with surrounding and future land uses, and the level of consent for waivers. As I mentioned previously, it's staff's opinion that given the limitations with land use zoning and future land use designations, that this site is compatible with oil and gas development. And our regulations allow co-location of oil and gas development in most agricultural and industrially zoned parcels. So this site complies with that requirement. Traffic is usually always our biggest issue when it comes to oil and gas facilities. This one, not so much, because they're only using 0.25 miles of county-owned road. So the only access that is permittable by the county for this site will be I-70 to Manila Road. They'll only be allowed to use a 0.25 mile stretch of Manila Road to get to the oil and gas facility. Again, we assess oil and gas traffic impact fees for the use of county roads, and the applicant elected to submit an independent fee calculation for this oil and gas location. So the de facto fee based on the number of wells would have been $510,000. They submitted an independent traffic impact fee, which the county has accepted, reducing that oil and gas traffic impact fee to $120,586. Again, primarily because the only portion of county owned or maintained road they'll be using is a 0.25 mile stretch of paved Manila Road. So you can see on here on the map, the existing access road in pink, and then their haul route is on the lime green. I will note that all traffic related to this oil and gas facility must use this route. Contractors, subcontractors, they are not allowed or authorized to utilize any other access point. They cannot come south on Manila Road to access the point. They have to go north on Manila from I-70. That's the only way they're allowed to access the facility. Our impact plans, I won't go over all of this, but we require similar plans to the ECMC. They submitted over 12 mitigation and impact assessment fee plans that we reviewed with our development engineering, our public works departments, Colorado Air and Spaceport, and me and community and economic development. A list of our BMPs that we'll be requiring. This includes the use of electric drilling rigs. They will be required to do air quality monitoring for the life of the wells. They'll have to do continuous noise monitoring during pre-production operations. They'll have to have pipeline with crude oil and natural gas takeaway, and that pipeline must be shut in the wells must be shut in if the pipeline becomes unavailable. The same with the electric drilling rigs. If grid power for some reason becomes unavailable, they must halt drilling. They can complete the well if they're on, but they can't commence drilling of any other wells until grid power is restored. The site has to have remote shut-in capabilities, which most Civitas facilities do anyway. Again, staff has recommended approval of this application to the Board of County Commissioners. It's scheduled for October 28th at 9:30 a.m. The notice has been sent to all landowners within 1 mile of notice of hearing. It's already been published in the I-70 Scout newspaper, and it's also on the county's website already. So it's been noticed. We are recommending approval with 2 waivers. That's one for the environmentally sensitive areas, one for the residential setbacks. 6 conditions precedent, which those are conditions we require before they start construction. That includes the payment of their traffic impact fee. We have approval authority on an air quality monitoring plan. They have to get final engineering approval for their drainage and infrastructure, things like that. And then 26 conditions of approval, which include all the BMPs we've codified as conditions of approval. If this OGF is approved, it will expire on October 28th, 2028. And again, the county's regulations require all wells to be in production by that point. So if the wells have not commenced production by October 28th, 2028, all approvals expire, and they'll have to apply for a new OGF application. I will note, just for the record, that county permits have strict limitations on expanding or modifying uses or adding equipment or increasing liquid storage on any facility approved by Adams County. So we approve an extensive list of equipment that is allowed on the site. We don't allow, so similar to how ECMC would do a Form 4 sundry for adding new equipment, we don't have that mechanism. So anytime an applicant wants to add additional equipment to a facility, they have to amend their oil and gas facility permit with the county. Sometimes that's an administrative approval, and sometimes it could trigger an entirely new oil and gas facility permit, depending on the scale of the intensity. just for the record. And again, I don't speak for the board. The board makes the ultimate decision, but staff feels very comfortable with recommending approval of this application, and we think that it is protective of public health, safety, welfare, and the environment.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Always appreciate the relevant local government's perspective on a pending ECMC application, as well as your own extensive permitting process that Adams County undertakes. Do commissioners have questions? Commissioner Oath?
Thank you, and thanks, Mr. Dean, for your presentation and all of the work reviewing this application and sharing that with us today. Regarding the surface owner who submitted an opposition, and you said it was related to concerns around the water well, and noting that the operator did submit, has to submit this water quality and protection plan. Can you just share a little bit more about kind of what the county was able to do in assessing that concern and how you're looking at that?
Yeah, so the county requires water well sampling out a half a mile, which I think is slightly larger than the ECMC's requirement. And then in response to the comment, the applicant and the water well in question on the property owner who opposes this oil and gas facility permit, their water well is outside of a half a mile, but the applicant has agreed to sample their water well as well at the same frequency as any water well within the half a mile. So the water well is actually on the east side of the property, whereas the wells are on the far west across the street. So they're just outside of our half mile window that would have required them to sample water wells. The applicant, in response to this opposition, has agreed to sample at their allowance their water wells well. So that's how the county addressed the other comment. Their other concern was perception that property value would be diminished somehow. The county has no way of confirming that's accurate or mitigating against potential or perceived property devaluation.
Okay,
so that
thank
addressed
you.
your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Yep.
Commissioner Messner?
Thanks, Mr. Dean, for being here and sharing the local government's perspective. I really appreciate Adams County's process. Just a little bit about timing. It's before the Board of County Commissioners on October 28th. It's clear that you've recommended approval. The two waivers that trigger that Board of County Commissioners review, I mean, what happens if they ask for modifications or shifting of things, in their approval process? Is it, or do they have to just decide on the application that's before them to approve or deny, or is there potential modifications that happen at that BOCC meeting?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Generally speaking, any modifications at an Adams County hearing are related to best management practices and not changing of footprints. So they could require additional water well sampling, more high frequency water well sampling. Typically, they would not require the movement of an oil and gas facility. If that were to happen, they would continue the case because then we would have to re-review. It'd have to go back to engineering. We'd also have to make sure that if we slid the oil and gas facility one way or the other, we would have to renotice everyone in case it triggered additional landowners within our 1 mile notice radius, things like that. So the board typically does not make those types of decisions on the fly at a hearing. Historically, they just add just best management practices or limitations on operations, things that probably would not impact an OGDP.
Okay.
And granting the waivers occurs simultaneously with approving the OGF. So there wouldn't be an instance where they would approve the waiver but not the OGF, or vice versa. It's all one. When they make the motion to either approve or deny, they would approve it with the 12 findings of fact, which is our 12 variables we have to review as part of the county's process, and then they would approve the 26 conditions, the 2 waivers, and the 6 conditions precedent all together.
Great. Thank you.
Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you, and thanks, Mr. Dean, for the presentation. Just a quick question. From your presentation, I understood that there's a hard commitment to grid power for drilling with no caveat. Is that correct? There's no kind of backup to gas engines. It's grid power or shutdown drilling.
So for the most part, yes. The intent of the way we've worded our condition of approval for grid power is that they can use tier 4 or natural gas powered engines temporarily if there's a grid power outage. So if they're in the middle of drilling a well, they can finish drilling the well using a tier 4 or a natural gas powered or battery assist engine for that one well, but they cannot commence drilling on any other wells until grid power comes back up. And that the main purpose of that is for safety. We wouldn't want there to be a well control issue where they have to shut in if they're in a precarious position, like in the curve or far out in a lateral. We wouldn't want there to be a well control issue. So we will let them finish the wells using either tier 4 or natural gas powered. And then they can't commence drilling on a subsequent well until grid power is restored.
Thanks for the clarification. Appreciate that.
Further questions for Mr. Dean? All right, seeing none, we thank you again for the county's perspective on this proposal. Thanks for being with us and for presenting, and we will let you unvisualize and go back to your day job. All right, Ms. Ryan, we now will hear from the applicant.
Right, good morning. Kevin, if you could please pull up our PowerPoint. All right, so good morning, commissioners, staff, members of the general public. My name is Julia Ryan, and I'm a shareholder with Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck, representing Crestone Peak Resources this morning for its Bennett D Oil and Gas Development Plan in docket number 2411-00269. As you will hear, this application also includes an order for spacing. And to begin, I would like to thank staff on behalf of Crestone for this work on this application. I'd also like to thank Mr. Dean for his remarks and for Adams County staff work on this application and recommendation of approval, including specifically finding that the application provides substantially equivalent protections. Crestone values its partnership with Adams County with respect to this project and other existing ones, and appreciates the several touch points it has had with the county and ECMC throughout the respective state and local permitting paths. Mr. Piquera, followed by Mr. Harrington, will now present this OGDP, including the spacing details.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan, and thank you, commissioners, for allowing us to present our Bennett D OGDP application. We could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Here's an overview of the application. We're proposing a single pad oil and gas location with 26 new horizontal wells located in unincorporated Adams County, just off I-70 and Manila Road. PLGs are City of Aurora and Arapahoe County. Pad siting at a high level was chosen to be congruent with our Bennett Oil Terminal, which is located on the same property. And this is Civitas-owned land. This site is designed to develop 5 DSUs to the north and to the south. I won't run through the legals there, but you can see them listed. We did trigger ALA criteria here. One, the working pad surface is less than 2,000 feet from an RBU, and we are within or immediately up gradient of some wetland riparian corridors. We'll address those issues specifically when we get to our ALA analysis. However, we have no school facilities, childcare centers, HOBUs, DOAA, or PWS within a mile of the location, and we do not have disproportionately impacted communities within the mile. Our CDPHE consultation took place on July 24th, 2025, and our EnviroScreen scores here were 58 in 1.0 and 29.5 in 2.0. Next slide, please. As I said a moment ago, we do intend to develop into 5 DSUs from Bennett D. We got a question about this, so I'll go into it in some detail here. You'll note that the 2 southernmost DSUs will be developed from 2 pad, roughly the north half from Bennett D and the south half from a future pad to the south. We did include both of those DSUs in the Bennett D OGDP to create consistent technical and drainage testimony. But of a note, we are not proposing more than 26 wells. We will be developing the rest of those DSUs from another site to the south sometime in the future. We do have precedent for this. We went through with a similar setup with our Lussing Trust OGDP and subsequent Chico North OGDP in Arapahoe County last year. Next slide, please. There are limited offset wells in this development area. We have 14 existing horizontal wells within the OGDP, all operated by Civitas subsidiaries. The majority of these are relatively recent and active, and we anticipate they'll continue to produce through this development and beyond. We do have one well marked out here in the blue call out, the state of Colorado 361H. We will P&A that well in conjunction with this development. We also have a limited number of legacy P&A verticals in the development area, and those will be evaluated during the OWE process. Slide, please. This is our planned operational time frame. We'd like to start construction on the pad in the fourth quarter of 2025. We're planning drilling operations in 2 phases, with phase 1 in Q1 to Q2 of 2026, and then a second phase in Q1 to 2Q of 2027. Of note, unlike some other OGDPs in the area, all of our proposed BMPs will be in place for both operational phases. So for full electrification for phase 1 and phase 2. And the reason for our dual phasing here is that we are pushing the eastern edge of our field, and phase 1 will involve essentially some spacing tests before we come in and do phase 2. Next slide, please. We'll get into some detail here on the siting issues. You can see the 2 large tanks that are part of our current Bennett oil terminal here just northeast of the pad, and the proposed pad outline here in the light blue. The facility, as noted by Mr. Dean, is located on the eastern side of the pad, as far away as possible from those delineated wetlands to the southwest. As to the RBUs, you can see the 2 RBUs within 2,000 feet of the working pad surface to the east in red. Only the closer is within 2,000 foot of wells and equipment, and that RBU is vacant and has been for some time. The farther RBU is occupied, but we do have an email of consent from the resident from the Adams County process, as you heard from Mr. Dean. Further to concerns about the water wells on the property, we have agreed to water testing of that well, and we took our first samples back in June 2025 and returned results to the landowner last month. We'll go into further detail as to the status of the RBU parcel later. Further, CDPHE has reviewed the BMPs Crestone is committed to for this location and supports those BMPs. We're not in HPH. CPW did participate in the county pre-application meeting, but did not directly consult. And then we do have wetlands within 500 feet of the working pad surface. CPW did issue a 1202A3 waiver after reviewing the proposed BMPs, which include a 3-foot berm on the western side of the pad where the wetlands are proximate. We did look through 7 alternative locations as part of the ALA. And with that, I'd like to turn over to Mr. Picard to review that ALA process.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning, Chair, Commissioners, and staff. My name is John Picara. I'm a regulatory advisor with Civitas. We appreciate your time today. Next slide, please. This slide shows the proposed location and the 7 alternatives we evaluated. Next slide. Alternative location 1 is located less than 2,000 feet from one residential building unit. Developing the targeted minerals from this site would require an additional location, which will introduce more surface disturbance. The surface owner has declined to negotiate a surface use agreement, which eliminates the feasibility of this site. Additionally, the haul route would likely pass by a mobile home community to the north, which is just outside the 2,000 feet buffer from this location. Alternative 2 would require construction of an additional location also. It's in closer proximity to a residential building unit than the proposed site, and the surface owner is also not willing to sign the surface use agreement. Next slide, please. Alternative 3 would require an additional location to fully develop the targeted minerals. Construction of at least a quarter mile of new access road would be necessary, and the landowner has expressed no interest in allowing further disturbance on their property. Additionally, this alternative would require 3 to 4 miles of new pipeline infrastructure, and the proposed haul route would pass near residential building units. Alternative 4 presents several challenges. The location is less than 2,000 feet from 8 residential building units, and approximately a dozen RBUs fall within the Arapahoe County's 3,000-foot setback zone. The site is located within a pronghorn winter concentration HPH, and the location overlaps a map wetland, and disturbance would not be avoided. Next slide, please. Alternative 5 is located less than 2,000 feet from 3 residential building units, and the site is immediately up gradient from a map wetland. The surface owner is reserving the remainder of their property for future development and not supportive of additional disturbance. Alternative 6 is located within pronghorn winter concentration HPH and is also immediately up gradient of a mapped wetland. It's within 3,000 feet of 5 residential building units, placing it inside Arapahoe County's setback zone. Another location would be needed to fully develop the targeted minerals, and notably another operator had submitted an OGDP for a location approximately 125 feet to the north, which has since been approved. Next slide, please. Alternative 7 presents multiple siting challenges. The location is less than 2,000 feet from 3 residential building units, all of which are within a disproportionately impacted community. It's also within 3,000 feet of 12 RBUs, placing it within Arapahoe County setbacks. Environmentally, this site is located in a pronghorn winter concentration, high priority habitat, and sits immediately up gradient from a map wetland. Lastly, another location would be necessary as well. Next slide, please. As Mr. Dean mentioned, Crestone is currently navigating the Adams County permitting process for the Bennett D site. Key milestones include the pre-application meeting held on November 6th of 2024, followed by a neighborhood meeting on November 25th, 2024. The formal application was submitted on January 27th, 25, and the public hearing is scheduled for October 28th. The Bennett D proposal has undergone a thorough evaluation by Adams County staff. At this point, all required documentation has been provided, and there are no pending questions or requests for additional information. We continue to work closely with Adams County staff as they finalize their staff report ahead of the hearing. Crestone is also prepared to file a sundry amendment to the OGDP if it's needed to resolve any inconsistencies between the approved development plan and the county's oil and gas facility permit. Next slide. Crestone has actively engaged with nearby stakeholders throughout the Bennett D siting process. The 2 closest residential building units are located approximately 1,790 feet and a bit over 1,900 feet to the east of the proposed pad on a commercial stud farm property. Since November of 2024, Crestone has maintained regular communication with the landowner and tenant through in-person meetings, phone calls, and emails. As Dan mentioned, and Mr. Dean, we conducted baseline water sampling on the property. That surface owner is not a resident, and the tenant confirmed plans to relocate along with the stud service business to northern Colorado later this year. As of summer 2025, the property is listed for sale. In addition, Crestone has consulted with nearby property owners along Kavanaugh Road, located about a half mile northwest of the proposed site. Notably, there's been no public comments in response to the Form 2A or the hearing application. Next slide, please. And, now I'll touch on some of the proposed BMPs and mitigation efforts. Next slide. Crestone has incorporated a range of BMPs to avoid, minimize, and mitigate potential impacts from siting and construction. Avoidance measures include selecting a location more than 2,000 feet from the nearest high occupancy building unit, school, childcare center, and DOAA. The site is also located outside of any high priority habitat. To minimize disturbance, the pad is strategically placed adjacent to an existing midstream facility, reducing the need for new access roads and extensive pipeline infrastructure. Mitigation efforts include using fresh water on the access road to control dust generation. Topsoil stockpiles will be constructed with a gentle 4-to-1 slope to allow safe and effective seeding and will be stabilized with vegetation to prevent erosion. Grading has been carefully designed with nearby wetlands in mind, including drainage direction to the east and north and the installation of a 3-foot berm to protect sensitive areas during pre-production operations. Next slide, please. We've committed to several best management practices to minimize and mitigate impacts during drilling operations. To minimize odors, emissions, and noise, Group 3 drilling mud will be used, and the drilling rig will be powered by utility power rather than diesel generators. For mitigation, pipe cleaning procedures will be implemented when removing the drill string. A closed-loop, pitless fluid management system will be used to contain and circulate drilling fluids. Drill cuttings will be hauled off-site daily or as soon as containers are full to a licensed commercial disposal facility. A polyethylene liner will be installed beneath the drilling rig and tanks as an added spill prevention measure. Additionally, 32-foot sound walls will be erected around the well pad to reduce noise and visual impacts on nearby receptors. Next slide, please. During the well completion phase, our team is committed to minimizing environmental impacts and ensuring safe, responsible operations. To start, we're reducing truck traffic by using temporary lay-flat waterline system. This allows us to pipe fresh water directly to the site, cutting down on road congestion, emissions, and wear on local infrastructure. We're also using Tier 4 equivalent or better engines throughout the completion process to significantly reduce emissions. Regarding flowback, we're routing all fluids through emission-controlled production facilities. This ensures that any volatile compounds are captured or treated before they can be released to the atmosphere. Regarding mitigation efforts, we're employing the practice of block and isolate wherever possible. This means isolating equipment, piping, and tank connections to prevent leaks and enhance safety. If any gas is encountered during flowback, it will either be sent directly to a gas sales pipeline or combusted using equipment that achieves at least 98% destruction efficiency to minimize greenhouse gas emissions and protect air quality. For sand handling, we're using sandboxes for both storage and transport, reducing dust and particulate matter. We'll also continue to utilize a liner beneath completions equipment, including pump trucks and other heavy equipment on the location. And finally, we'll continue to use the 32-foot sound walls around the pre-production area through completions. Okay, next slide, please. And to start with the minimization efforts during the production phase, we've made some choices to reduce emissions, traffic, and the overall footprint of the site. First, the permanent production facilities will be powered by utility electricity. That means no generators running on diesel or natural gas. We'll install oil and gas pipelines before first production, eliminating the need for trucks to haul product off-site and eliminate associated emissions. We'll not store hydrocarbon liquids in permanent tanks on site. This will reduce the risk of spills and limits potential for emissions. By utilizing 3-phase meters and bulk separators, we're able to minimize the amount of equipment required, reduce the overall footprint of the facility, and lower potential emissions and spill risks. When it comes to maintenance, we're using the pressurized maintenance vessel. This eliminates the potential venting that may happen during routine operations. And shifting to mitigations, the location will be equipped with a SCADA system that allows remote monitoring and shutting capabilities that'll allow us to respond immediately in the event of a potential concern. Equipment will be painted desert tan or similar color to blend in with the surrounding landscape. And we've worked with Adams County staff to develop a landscaping plan that includes fencing and trees to further soften the visual impact. On the air quality front, we're working in collaboration with the Adams County Health Department to establish our monitoring protocols, which will likely exceed CDPHE requirements, which will include monitoring for the life of the wells on this location. Now I'll hand it off to Ms. Ryan to wrap up the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Final slide, please, Kevin. Thank you. So, commissioners, as you've just heard, this proposed OGDP application, among other things, included a rigorous alternative location analysis to avoid sensitive receptors and includes many siting considerations and advanced BMPs to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts during all stages of operations throughout the entire life of the development. The ECMC Bennett D OGDP application received no public comments, has no protests, and there is both a director's recommendation for approval and an Adams County staff recommendation for approval. Given that, Crestone respectfully requests you approve an approximate 8,344 acre OGDP for the development and production of up to 31 new horizontal wells, of which 26 new wells will be developed from the one oil and gas location before you today, and that you further approve the amendment or establishment of 5 DSUs to include the 26 Bennett D pad wells and 5 new horizontal wells from a location to be permitted and developed outside of the Bennett D location at a later date. Relatedly, Crestone asks for the approval of the Associate Form 2A of the Bennett D pad and to find that the Bennett D OGDP will protect and minimize adverse impacts to public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources, and will protect against adverse environmental impacts on air, water, soil, or biological resources. Thank you very much for your consideration today and your thoughtful questions to Mr. Dean. The 2 Crestone speakers, as well as the handful of previously sworn in subject matter experts, are happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Ms. Ryan, I'm confused. How many wells are you seeking to get approved today?
Yeah, that's a great question, and Civitas can answer further if you would like. We're only seeking approval of 26 wells. Insofar as the location that we're seeking to approve today, it's just one location and it has 26 wells. But we're also including a spacing order, and the spacing order would have up to 31 wells. Then this is for efficiency, and I believe, as Mr. Harrington mentioned, Civitas has precedent for doing this with 2 other OGDPs that the commission approved, where spacing asked for an additional number of wells, but the location was for a smaller amount of wells.
So the extra 5 are not seeking well approval today, just spacing approval today. Is that?
That's correct.
Does anybody from Civitas want to weigh in on that clarification?
I'll agree with Miss Ryan said, everything Miss Ryan said, and I'll also add that when we prepare our DSU technical testimony, we need to account for the drainage in the DSU as planned over the life of the development of the DSU. So it creates a little bit of a technical problem if we were to get those DSU approved with those 5 fewer wells now, and it would essentially have incorrect drainage testimony. So we wanted to account for the ultimate development plan in the DSUs, although we fully understand we have no approval to actually drill those 5 wells until we get the next OGDP approved.
So when I'm reading the 3rd bullet, Ms. Ryan, approve the requested relief in Exhibit C, Crestone's associated DSU, which includes 26 in the current OGDP and 5 in the new. That's just a request of relief for drilling and spacing unit for 31. That is not in any form a request for 31 wells today.
Absolutely. It's just a request for spacing, and it's just the requested relief in Exhibit C, which are the drilling and spacing unit applications.
Okay. I just wanted to clear that up a little bit. Commissioners, this panel is certainly open for questions. Commissioner Messner.
Well, thanks. And thanks, Mr. Chair, for bringing that up, because that also confused me, particularly the kind of the language that was used in there that that the ask was to approve the development and production of 31 wells, not just the spacing of 31 wells. And so that clarification, I think, is really important. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the 2 phases. My understanding from conversations with OGLA staff is that the application itself contemplates 1 occupation, and a lot of the plans associated with the application contemplate one occupation. And so the hearing presentation, I think, is the first time that two phases were presented. And so was there a shift between one occupation and two occupations? And how is that two occupation captured in your argument associated with 604B4 substantial equivalency in your cumulative impacts analysis and in your Form 2B?
Thank you, Mr. Messner. I can start, and then I'll probably hand off to one of our regulatory reps to talk through some of the specifics as relates to the 2B. But the intention here is to bring in a rig, drill roughly half the wells, do some testing on particularly the eastern wells that are sort of at the edge of our field, and then utilize those results to inform our wellbore design and even our wellbore count for the second phase. One reason that you're seeing only one phase in the early documentation is the fact that we're intending for these two phases to be relatively close together. The end of phase one completions is only about 6 months from the beginning of phase two drilling, as it were. But we did want to be transparent about the fact that the rig is, we would like the rig to go away for some time and then come back. The emissions that are accounted for in the 2B are inclusive of all operations for all wells.
Was there anyone else that wanted to provide comment? I thought you had indicated that. Yeah.
And if anyone else would like to provide, please go ahead, or we can leave it there.
Sure. Thank you for the question, Commissioner Mesner. Just to kind of add additional items to it, our Form 2B, the traffic contemplated within that, and on our traffic plan, the counts will remain the same. They may be split up over, the course of those two occupations, but the counts will remain the same. There might be a slight more delta in traffic, but it should be extremely minor for the rig in and rig out and of each, rig and completion fleet. And we're more than happy to work with staff to provide that slight update in the truck traffic on the Form 2B if necessary. But like I said, I expect those updates to be minimal in comparison to the overall truck counts. And as Dan said, the emissions account for pre-production operations for both phases, and the production accounts for, the first year of emissions, which will be, partial. It'll be inclusive of both of those because we'll likely come on within a year of each other.
Okay. So I'm asking these questions to evaluate the impacts associated with substantial equivalency. And so when you talk about rigging up, de-rigging, rigging up, de-rigging, bringing in completions operations one time, removing completions operations, bringing in completions operations a second time. That's all contemplated in two phases. And what about sound walls? Are we deconstructing sound walls between phases, or what's that look like?
We likely wouldn't perform interim reclamation operations as a part of that because it'll be within a year. We'll start drilling within a year of basically those wells coming online and the drill up tube up. So we will not perform interim reclamation operations, and the sound walls will remain in place. And we've communicated as our plans have changed, we have communicated that to, the offsetting residents about, the potential for a two-phase operation.
Okay. And just a question in your local government permitting, is that understood by the local government that there's a two-phase operation being contemplated here?
There's not a Form 2B, similar question to fill out, so to speak, in the oil and gas facility permit, but Mr. Dean is aware that we are contemplating potentially these two-phase type situation with the little gap in between, I guess. I think that's fair to say.
Okay. I think that's my only question right now. Thank you.
Uh, I have another clarifying question. Ms. Ryan or Mr. Harrington, if you could provide us the names of the wells associated with the DSUs that are not developed from the Bennett D pad oil and gas location, that would be helpful for deliberations.
If you would, Mr. Robbins, to clarify the future planned wells that are contemplated in the spacing order but not contemplated in the 2A.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah.
Sure. I can get you those wells.
If you could just get them to Mr. Boudreau, that would be helpful while we continue to ask questions.
Will do.
All right. Other questions from commissioners? All right. Seeing no more questions, let's take a short break as I gather my notes, and let's return at 10:20 for deliberations. All right, commissioners, we're back on the docket number 2411000269. We had, I think, exhausted questions of the applicant. Does any commissioner have any further questions? Commissioner Messner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wonder if I could ask Mr. Dean a question.
Mr. Dean, are you still with us?
Yes.
Hi, Mr. Dean. I wonder if you could just confirm that Adams County understands that there'd be two phases or two occupations. I'm asking this question because local government considerations and dispositions is one of the points that I have to determine as far as a 604B4 substantial equivalency determination.
Yes, so the applicant has made it clear to us because of our strict requirement for electric drilling rigs specifically that and the availability of grid power that they may have to do it in two occupations in order to maintain complete electrification of the facility. So that has been incorporated. Additionally, we incorporated a caveat in their interim reclamation plan that that gives them a little bit of leniency if they are doing drilling or completions in two phases, so that they wouldn't have to necessarily interim reclaim so long as they left their sound walls in place.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Dean, for sticking with us. All right, any further questions before we move to deliberations? All right, seeing none, does any commissioner desire to initiate deliberations today? Commissioner Messner?
Thanks. So a couple of different things. I think that there's a lot of good things about this application, and I really do think that generally speaking, the siting of the location and the evaluation of the alternative location analysis was well done. I think that especially after hearing from the relevant local government and the local government's zoning of the areas around this proposed facility, and understanding that in the future, there would not be any new anticipated residential development that would occur in this general area, and that predominantly it would be industrial, perhaps aerospace type of industrial activity and agriculture being contemplated in this area. I like that it is only a quarter mile away from the interstate. I think that the haul route that's being proposed here, even though that amount of truck traffic associated with produced water takeaway in the initial phases of operations is relatively significant, I think it being close to the county road, close to the interstate, and the haul route only utilizing quarter mile of the county road, and not going near any sensitive receptors or residential areas, is really very appropriate for the utilization of truck traffic in this particular instance. I do appreciate the applicant's utilization of grid power for both drilling operations and production facilities. I think there's a number of other BMPs that they've agreed to either as part of this application or part of the local government processes that are very strong as well. And so I think a lot of good elements associated with this. And so really my review came down to 604B4, which I'm required as part of our rules to develop a finding that the proposed oil and gas locations and conditions of approval will provide substantially equivalent protections for public health, safety, welfare, the environment, wildlife resources, including disproportionately impacted communities. And I went through a number of different parts of this, including the director's recommendation on the oil and gas location. And while the director's recommendation recommended approval, they were silent on the substantial equivalency portion of that. And so I went on to look at B, which is the extent to which the oil and gas location design and any planned best management practices, preferred control technologies, and conditions of approval avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts. And I do think a lot of what's being proposed really does avoid, minimize, and mitigate adverse impacts. And the BMPs that are being employed are substantial. I do struggle a little bit with the multiple occupations. As one of the things that I have to contemplate is the duration and intensity of all phases of the proposed oil and gas operations. I appreciate Mr. Dean's explanation that part of that had to do with the requirement to utilize grid power for drilling operations, which is not what the applicant had identified as a reason for. But I do understand that flexibility in utilizing some of these best management practices may be necessary. And so I think it's reasonable to understand that there's two phases. I don't love that that wasn't part of the original application, and that I don't believe it was part of the review that the OGLAs went through in developing the director's recommendation that there was multiple phases. I don't love that last minute changes like this happened between the director's recommendation and our review of the application. But I'm not hearing anything that would cause problems associated with the two occupations. I think the relevant local government has indicated that the staff at least has recommended approval of the location with a robust set of BMPs that exceed in some instances the ECMC requirements, and I appreciate that. I think I struggle a little bit with not having a local government decision before a substantial equivalency determination at ECMC level. I think that's, to me, the cleanest and less risky for the applicant and for ECMC staff should there be any significant changes to an application through final approval of the local government process, particularly in substantial equivalency determinations. But I think the explanation that was given to me by Mr. Dean that the changes that typically happen at the local government Board of County Commissioner hearings are generally BMP in nature and don't significantly shift things that are happening, either siting of that location or perhaps even things that are equipment that's being contemplated on site. And so I'm comfortable in this particular instance of making a decision prior to having a full decision at the local government level, but ideally would like to see that happen to minimize risk. And ultimately, should there be a shift at the local government level that requires a substantial change to this application, then that would start the OGDP process over for the applicant. And, the other elements, I think were pretty well highlighted by the applicant, including related oil and gas location siting and infrastructure, how oil and gas facilities associated with the proposed oil and gas location are designed to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts, and how the operator's actual and planned engagement with nearby residents and businesses to consult with them about planned oil and gas operations. Just a note that particularly in substantial equivalency determinations, having all of these things lined out in a rationale for substantial equivalency and determination by the applicant prior to hearing, certainly helpful for me in reviewing it so that I can understand how the applicant believes that they made a showing on these. I think the applicant tried to provide a substantial equivalency determination, but it didn't necessarily follow the elements in the rules that I'm reviewing and determining some of this, but that's not here nor there. And so I think finally, I don't love this of trying to get future oil and gas drilling and spacing units approved as part of this application. I think it's messy. It was confusing. The language that was utilized in the draft order that was provided by the applicant and in the hearing presentation, I think added to that confusion. While I'm always looking for opportunities for efficiency and understand the benefits to that, I think this is messy to have these two things conflated. I'm not saying it's not approvable in this particular instance, but I don't think this is a best practice. So those are my initial thoughts, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the initial thoughts. I'm pretty much in alignment. I also appreciate the note that you pointed out that the applicant really ought to work through 604B4 in its presentation and show how the elements have been met. I think they met them, but I think we had to do some digging, and you did a good job of doing that digging for the rest of us. So I appreciate that. And I agree with the additional 5 DSUs, not wells. I thought it was, well, I think we all got confused. And so that could have been more, if you're going to do something that is unique, you should honor that uniqueness and be very clear about it. And I think there could have been a little more clear on that approach. I do have some language that I've developed to try to address that in a motion, but first let's hear from other commissioners in deliberation. Commissioner Cross beat out Commissioner Ackerman by a hair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Messner, for going first. I'll say generally I'm kind of in the same boat here. I do think that there are a lot of really good things in this application. I think that the BMPs being used, the electric drilling, the electrification, small access road, et cetera. There's a lot of really good things to this. One of the things that stuck out to me, and I know Commissioner Messner, you raised the point as well, was the work done in the ALA. And as I was looking through the ALA, I think you obviously have some where it would require multiple sites, and so that's a negative to it. The consolidation is better. But one that stuck out to me as well is it would also be closer, I think it was ALA number 1, would also be closer to a mobile home community. And so I think that that's also another consideration that is important to take into account as well, because I think that that could have a lot of additional impacts as well. I did want to say, Commissioner Messner, based on a couple of the comments you had, kind of the hesitation around having our decision before the local government decision. And I understand that. And I just wanted to comment on a couple things you said with respect to it. I know you said it's easier and provides less risk to the applicants themselves. I agree, but at the same time, I think that's the applicant's risk. And if that's something that could potentially derail their application because they can't get it through the local government, I think that that's something that applicants need to be aware of and take into account. And then another thing you talked about, you addressed some of the same points that I was going to make as well, was kind of if having the local government decision later could have substantial changes to what we approved and what that might look like going back to staff. And as you talked about, both Adams County not having the changes to it, but also I think that if there were substantial changes that would come from an approval of the local government, especially if the changes are substantial, I think it's going to have to come back before us as well. And so I think that that was an important part to highlight. And so I appreciate that discussion. With respect to the multiple occupations, I'll be honest, and I agree with Commissioner Messner on this as well. I think Mr. Dean's answer was a lot more illustrative of an appropriate reason for the multiple occupations. Um, Honestly, I was not really buying that we're going to try and use the first wells drilled to try and develop our drilling plan for the second occupation there, especially when you looked at there's only one potential P&A of an existing well happening because a lot of the other wells in the area are already producing their recently drilled wells, et cetera. And so it sounds like you would already have a lot of the geological information necessary to develop your drilling plan and be able to do that in one occupation without having to separate it out. And frankly, I think that we've been hearing that a lot recently. And while I can understand, especially in somewhat, I don't want to call them wildcat areas, but in undeveloped areas, or if you're going into a new set of minerals, a new formation that is not normally drilled into, we've seen that in a couple circumstances. I can understand how that could play into the decision making of multiple occupations and trying to see what wells worked, what was problematic, how you can drill the wells more efficiently in a second occupation. But I think in areas where we do have a lot of development already, I'm honestly not really buying that explanation at all. And so I think that that's something that should be looked at. And I think also something we should maybe consider moving forward is putting something in the 2A to specifically note how many occupations are planned. And I think that that could be something that could prevent a lot of this confusion and uncertainty in what we're seeing and what the OGLAs the location analyst specialists have told us kind of leading into this versus what we're hearing in the presentation as well. And so I think that that's something we should consider doing with the Form 2A in the future. Those are my comments.
Commissioner Ackerman?
Thank you. And again, to you and Commissioner Messner, thank you for leading on this issue. And I'm in alignment with your thoughts as well. I really appreciate Commissioner Cross's suggestion on the 2A of identifying the number of occupations planned. I think that would be helpful. My only comment would be, as I asked Mr. Dean, it seems like the application to ECMC is a bit different with regard to using grid power. The current application before us identifies using grid power with a caveat that they can use grid power, or they can use Tier 4 engines or equivalent if they demonstrate best efforts to use a grid power unsuccessfully. That doesn't seem to me to be in alignment with what Mr. Dean set forth, and I think maybe a COA to align those two would be appropriate. Something like grid power is required for drilling, but in the event that grid power becomes unavailable, any well in progress of being drilled may be completed using Tier 4 equivalent engines to ensure safety. Alternatively, we could just cite to the Adams County restrictions as well. So I'd throw that out there for any concerns, but also for Councilor Boudreau to take a look at potentially. And that's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Ackerman. Commissioner Oath?
Thanks, and thanks to my fellow commissioners. I appreciate all of your comments. I really don't have any thing else to add. All of the comments I was going to make have been covered. I do like the suggested COA that Commissioner Ackerman just put forward. So that's all I would need to add.
All right. With that, I'm going to put AAG Boudreau on the spot. If he could visualize. Good morning again. So I think I'm ready to make a motion, but it has kind of some subparts. One has to do with the clarification relevant to we're approving the wells, the 26 wells as well, but we're not approving the 5 additional wells associated with the 31 DSU unit. I believe we need some direction to ensure that the 2 occupations are contained within either the Form 2A or the 2B. I think that's kind of a newer development. And then we've got the Commissioner Ackerman motion relevant to electrification. Are you ready to rattle off some language, or do you want a little bit of time to put all that into process?
I I believe I'm ready, Mr. Chair. As to the Form 2B, two occupation situation, it's staff's view that that can be handled if the operator agrees to update their Form 2B for the occupation count to change it from 1 to 2. And it's staff's view that we don't necessarily, the commission doesn't necessarily need a COA for that. I
Okay.
have some language on a motion that I think captures the Bennett D-pad oil and gas location and the 26 proposed wells to be drilled from there. And I have some language on a COA regarding grid power. And I'm happy to go ahead and give you a recommended motion if that's what you're looking for.
That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
So I'd recommend a motion that the commission approve the Bennett D OGDP and the DSUs requested in the application. That regarding locations, the commission is only approving the Bennett D-pad oil and gas location from which 26 proposed wells will be drilled. That the commission is not approving any oil and gas locations except for the Bennett D-pad oil and gas location. And that the motion will include a condition of approval that states grid power is required for drilling. In the event that grid power becomes unavailable, any well in progress of being drilled may be completed using Tier 4 or equivalent engines to ensure safety. And
All
that's
right.
it.
Sounds good to me. So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, very much, Mr. Boudreau. Very helpful to the commission today with taking notes and helping us with the motion. Thanks to the applicant for the presentation, and once again, thanks to all of the staff that are behind the scenes and helping get this application to a place where we can hear it and review it. And finally, thanks to Mr. Dean. Really appreciate the great work that Adams County is doing on this and its willingness to weave ECMC commissioners into that. As we all know, the 604B2, as well as just our general review of ECMC OGDPs, is very involved with regard to looking at what the relevant local government's thinking here. I think we also had some comments on this one from Aurora, so thank them too. Anything further from anybody today? I believe that wraps up our agenda. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. See you next time, folks.